Hello and welcome to this tutorial on job handoff and quality assurance in ONTRAM. This video will cover how the user can hand off a job to the next workflow participant after completing a task, in this case translating. In ONTRAM, these handoffs are called transfers, so a user effectively transfers a completed task to the next person in the workflow. Before handing off a task, ONTRAM will perform several quality checks to make sure no errors were introduced in the files, such as missing translation, missing placeholders, etc. Other QA checks are described later in this video. To get a feel for how ONTRAM's QA functionality works, let's do a brief overview. QA checks ensure that no predefined rules for file handling are violated during the editing process. The user can't hand off a job to the next workflow participant if there is an error. The QA check differentiates between errors and warnings. While warnings just alert you to a problem and prompt you to perform a check, they don't prevent workflow progress. Errors, on the other hand, will prevent you from handing off to the next workflow participant and must be corrected. It's up to the project manager or system administrator to configure error and warning behavior. ONTRAM is by default configured with a few QA check categories, including the ability to flag segments meeting the following conditions: missing target language entry, segments where the target language text is identical to the source language text, segments with text overruns where text exceeds predefined length boundaries, segments with changes that have not been reviewed, segments with missing placeholders, and segments with structural errors. It is also possible to configure your own QA checks to meet your organization's needs. But as we wanted to focus on how the translator handles hands-off and QA checks, we will cover QA check creation and configuration in a different tutorial. To show QA check functionality and job handoffs in action, we will log in as Kate. Kate has just finished her translation in the editing interface. So Kate's next step is to hand off or transfer the job to the next person in the workflow. Handing off a job to the next workflow participant is easy in ONTRAM. Kate simply goes to the Overview page under Job Selection, then selects Task by clicking the drop-down box, and then Transfer to Proofreading. She could optionally leave a comment. She could also attach a file. She finally clicks Perform Task to complete her task and hand it off. The system now displays the results of whatever QA checks are configured to run at handoff. We see 3 errors and warnings. While the system couldn't find any fields that are too long or structural errors, we see that there are in fact still sections without translations. Remember, we can't continue handing off without fixing these errors. The next step for Kate now is to fix the errors so that she can finally complete her task and hand it over. So she selects Switch to Editing page to address the errors in question. After Kate fixes all of the issues, she's now able to hand off the job to the proofreader. She enters the information again, performs the task, and finally confirms the task to hand it off. It's worth mentioning that QA check functionality can be accessed at any time in the translation process by simply selecting QA from the left navigation. This gives Kate the opportunity to check her edits at any time and to catch errors and warnings before getting to the handoff point. We hope that this video about handoffs and QA functionality in ONTRAM was helpful. Thanks for your attention. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us via live chat or by email at support@ontram.com.